Your husband and his friends thought it would be funny to leave me alone on an island to see how I would manage to get back. They laughed and left. I didn't go back. A month later, my husband found me in the Canary Islands. I had already started a new life. I'm Claudia, and I swear on everything I hold dear that if someone had told me this would happen, I wouldn't have believed it. But it happened to me. 4 months ago, the man I slept with, the man I shared my life with, Yvonne, abandoned me on that miserable beach in Corsica. It's not a metaphor, it's literal. They left me without a cell phone, without a passport, without money, without anyone. A miserable island. They got into the rental car, laughed loudly, and left. And you know what the last thing Yvonne said to me before leaving was? Relax, Claudita. This is all so you learn who's in charge. That jerk and his friends thought it was funny to teach me a lesson because, according to them, I was getting too big for my britches since I received an inheritance. Yes, my great-aunt died and left me some money. Not a crazy amount, but enough to stop asking Yvonne's permission for every miserable coffee I wanted to buy. And that messed with his head. Up until that point he decided what we ate, where we went, who we went out with. And I allowed it, I justified it, I said. It's his way of loving. But that inheritance was a small click, silent but real. I remember the night I told him. We were eating frozen lasagna and cheap beer. I was nervous. I didn't want him to think I was going to leave him or anything, and I said, my aunt died and she left me something. Something? How much? He asked without even looking at me. About 40,000 euros. There was a long silence and then he laughed. Look at you, the rich girl. That was the first crack. I saw it in his eyes. It wasn't surprise, it was fear. Let's go back to the island. We were in a group, Yvonne and his 2 idiot friends. We were doing some rough tourism. Camping, beer, bonfire. I was on the shore. I took off my sandals, looking at the sea. The sun was setting, I was calm. For the first time in months I felt free until I turned around and there was no one there. I approached the place where we had left our backpacks, and it was like being hit with a bucket of ice water. Nothing of mine was left, nothing. Not my bag, not my cell phone, not my documents, not a damn flip-flop. I stood there with the sand stuck to my ankles and my heart beating so hard I thought I was going to throw up. First I thought they went to get beer. Then I thought it was a joke, but it was already night, and they still hadn't returned. And then it hit me. That icy feeling in my stomach that you don't need to explain. They did it on purpose. And then I remembered. A few days earlier, I had seen Yvonne checking my phone when I came out of the bathroom. He denied it, obviously. He said he was looking for cute pictures. Lies. He was looking for control as always. And that night alone, trembling in the sand with wet feet, I understood what I always knew and never wanted to admit. Yvonne didn't leave me there by accident. He left me there to punish me for having money, for stopping asking for permission, for starting to think for myself. And he didn't leave me a way to communicate with anyone, not a single miserable cent. He only left me with what he believed I was without him. Nothing. But he was wrong. I slept 2 nights next to a bus station. I didn't even have the strength to cry. A lady gave me a blanket. She offered me a sandwich. Her hands were shaking more than mine. I just wanted to disappear. And it was there, on the second day, that someone saw me. A guy stared at me from the doorway of a cafe. He looked like he was deciding whether to approach me or not. In the end he did. He said to me in broken French, "Are you okay?" I didn't know what to answer. I just nodded poorly. He offered me a coffee. I accepted. My hands were shaking so much I couldn't hold the cup. After a few minutes of silence he asked, "Do you have a place to sleep?" I shook my head. I swallowed. I couldn't speak. Then he said, "I have a small room in the back. It's not much, but if you wash dishes you can stay." He didn't ask for my story. He didn't ask for my documents. He just looked me in the eyes, and at that moment that was worth more than anything. That's how I ended up working in a small cafe owned by a Frenchman named Mark. I slept among boxes and grease, ate stale bread and thin soup, but I was safe, and for the first time no one was telling me what to do. I saved every euro as if it were a diamond. 2 weeks later, I took a ferry to Marseille. I went to the consulate and said I had been robbed. They half believed me, but I managed to get my papers, and there I was again with my bank account in hand with 2 options: return to Madrid to the apartment that smelled of betrayal, or go as far away as possible to a place where nobody knew me, where I could start from scratch. I bought a ticket to La Palma, Canary Islands. And no, it wasn't to hide, it was to be reborn. They thought they broke me, but they woke me up. I had never been to La Palma. I didn't know anyone. I didn't speak the language well. But when I got off the plane with that humidity clinging to my body and the salty smell, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, my own silence. I didn't have a plan, I only knew one thing. I wasn't going to be the same again. I rented a tiny room in the apartment of an older woman who raised cats and talked to herself. She didn't ask any questions. You paid, you slept, that's it. I spent my days walking, looking for work. Hotels, bars, bakeries, supermarkets. Always the same, leave your resume. But without real papers and looking like a dysfunctional person, they didn't take me seriously. Until one morning, just when I was thinking of giving up, I saw a handwritten sign in the window of a cafe. Help wanted. Coffee, dishes, cleaning. Inquire within. I went in. My legs were shaking. A young man looked at me from the bar. He had a calm air, as if nothing was rushing him. Is the position on the sign still open? I asked. He studied me with his eyes, and instead of a yes, he threw me a, do you know what it's like to scrub until your nails fall off? Worse, I said. It's sleeping on the floor of a bus station. And he gave me the key to the back without saying anything else. His name was Samuel. He had that calmness that's not weakness but decisiveness. He didn't ask too much, but he saw everything. I washed dishes, mopped, made coffee, swept sidewalks 12 hours a day, but for the first time I didn't feel like I was paying with my soul. I did it for myself. I returned to the room, took off my shoes, and even though everything hurt, I thought, today nobody yelled at me. Today nobody controlled me. Today I was free. One night after closing, Samuel said to me, are you staying for a while? I thought he wanted to talk about work, but he brought 2 coffees. He sat across from me and without beating around the bush he said, I don't know what the hell they did to you, but you're rowing alone. And that has value. And there I burst into tears like a baby. Without words, just tears. He didn't hug me, he didn't try to save me, he just stayed. And that was all I needed. Over time I put together a plan. I knew about content networks, about sales. I had worked for Yvonne for years for free from the shadows. This time I was going to do it for myself. I used part of the inheritance, the same one that gave him hives, and rented a small place on a corner. I set up a small cafe bookstore, but with something that no one else had. Rage turned into an engine. I called it Lumbrá because that's what I had inside. Fire, not hate, strength. In 2 months I already had regular customers, women who came alone, tired, fed up. They drank coffee, read, stayed for hours. And once one of them told me, Claw, this place is the only thing that calms me. I went to the bathroom to cry, but this time it was from pride. Samuel would stop by sometimes. He brought bread. He helped with paperwork. He didn't invade, didn't ask questions, he just was. And that was new for me, not having to justify every breath. I was building something with my own hands, with my decisions, with my name, and for the first time I felt proud to be me. Until one day it happened. I was tending the bar like any other morning. A German tourist, I think, came in. She ordered a coffee and sat in the back. All normal, but when she left she said, there's a guy outside. He asked if you were the owner. I froze. What guy? Tall, short hair. He said he came from someone named Yvonne. The coffee almost fell out of my hands. I ran outside and saw him. One of Yvonne's friends, one of the ones who laughed while they left me in the sand like trash. Claudia. Wow, you're unrecognizable. What do you want? Relax, I just came to tell you that Yvonne is here on the island. How do you know where I am? You posted a story with this place. He found the name on Google. And it hit me. I had uploaded only one photo. A sunset, a cup with the cafe's logo. A friend shared it in a group. Someone saw it. Someone passed it on to him. One photo, one simple photo, and they tracked me down. The guy gave me a piece of paper, a handwritten number, and a phrase. He's sorry. He wants to see you. He says you're not the same, and that's why he needs to talk. I stood there with the paper shaking in my hand, and something inside broke, or rather, something finished welding itself together. I wasn't shaking anymore, not from fear but the opposite, because this time I was the one who was going to decide, and it wasn't going to be what he expected. Post 3 on Reddit. Yes, I know. Nobody understands why the hell I wrote to him, but I did. After one of his friends showed up outside my cafe and told me that Yvonne was on the island, I didn't call him, I didn't send him a voice message, I didn't cry. I sent him a one-line message. Tomorrow at 8 p.m.
Calle El Hierro 17.
Ask for me. And it wasn't an invitation anymore, it was a trap, one he would never see coming. I didn't sleep that night, not because of fear, but because of anger, anxiety, everything I never said. The next day I put on the red dress, not for him, for me, because I like how it looks on me, because I paid for it, because I feel like it. I prepared the table in the back, the prettiest one. With a candle, yes, but not to make it romantic, but so that every shadow would remind him of what he burned. And while I was getting the dishes ready, I don't know why, an image came to mind. The two of us cooking together one summer night, laughing because the pizza had come out crooked. Him with flour on his nose, me crying with laughter, and he hugged me from behind, kissed my neck and said, "If you ever leave, I'll follow you anywhere." How cruel memory is, isn't it? Those kinds of memories are the ones that hurt the most because they make you think that maybe he did love you, that maybe there was a moment when it was real. And then you remember the beach, the car driving away, and you understand that no, he never loved you more than he loved himself. At 8 p.m. sharp he walked in and I swear for a second I recognized him. Thinner, grayer, but with that same I control everything look that I knew so well until he saw me, and then everything crumbled. "You're different," he said. "I'm alive." Silence fell and he began his monologue. That it wasn't his intention, that it was a bad time, that he was in a weird phase, that the guys exaggerated. I looked at him and thought, seriously? You still think this is about you? When I couldn't take it anymore, I cut him off. It wasn't a mistake, Yvonne. It was a disgusting plan that you all put together. You laughed, you left me, you left. He was silent. Then he tried to change the subject. "And what are you doing now? Are you still washing dishes?" God, I laughed. Came out on its own.
No, Iván.
I have my own business. It's called Lumbrá. I built it myself without asking permission. He didn't say anything, just swallowed. And that's when I saw it. Fear, the fear of realizing he no longer had power. I served him a coffee, the same one as always, but this time it wasn't courtesy, it was a sentence. He didn't even touch it. "I thought you were going to yell at me," he said. "You've already yelled enough for both of us. I don't need noise, I need peace." He stood up. It was clear he wanted to say something else, but I stood up too, and I said the only thing I wanted to say. "I just wanted you to see this, all of this, what I am now, and understand something very simple. I'm not yours anymore, and I never will be again." He left. And no, I didn't feel good instantly. It wasn't like in the movies. I stood there, shaking. But then I went back to the bar, blew out the candle, and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Closure. Done. That's it. Game over. Update. After that night I didn't see him again. Not Yvonne, nor his little friends. He didn't write to me, he didn't insist. I suppose he understood. Or maybe he was just scared. I don't care. I continued with my thing. Lumber grew. Every day more people came. A local journalist asked me for an interview. I told her just enough. That I was a foreigner, that I started by washing dishes, that I built everything myself. A week later we were in a digital newspaper with the headline, "The Corner of Fire. The cafe that heals with coffee and words." People started coming from other islands. Women came with tired faces, with backpacks full of things you don't see. Some stayed silent, others talked nonstop, and I listened to them not because I was a therapist but because I was also that silent woman who wanted someone to see her. Once a young girl came in, no older than 22. She sat down, ordered a coffee, and burst into tears. I didn't say anything. I just left her a napkin with 2 written words. "Are you here?" She put it in her pocket. I don't know why, but that phrase started to stick. We wrote it on the cups, on the blackboard, on the window. "Are you here?" And suddenly, that small place that I opened with fear became a refuge. Not just mine, but for many. One morning I opened the cafe's email and found something that left me breathless. A journalist from a national magazine, one of those I used to only see in airports, wrote to me, "We heard about Lumbrá. We're preparing an edition about women who transformed their stories into strength. Are you interested in participating?" And I'm not going to lie, I cried, not because I dreamed of fame but because finally someone was talking about what I built, not about what they did to me. They took pictures, did an interview. I spoke with a calm voice, with pauses, without drama, without revenge, just with truth. A month later, the issue came out. My face was there, surrounded by books, coffee, and plants that weren't dying. Because now I also knew how to take care of things. And of course, that's when they reappeared. First, a message from a number I recognized instantly. One of Yvonne's friends. I saw you in the magazine. What a level, Claudita. Proud. Then another from a former friend, the one who didn't say anything when they left me stranded. I always knew you were going to shine. Lies. And finally, the one who was missing, Yvonne. Short, precise. Saw the article. I'm glad you're okay. I didn't reply. I didn't block him either. I just left it there, like everything that no longer affects me, because that's the real victory. Not that they ask for your forgiveness, but that you don't care anymore. One day a TV producer came. They wanted to film a live segment. They showed the cafe, talked to me, filmed the customers, the blackboard with the "Are you here?" Samuel watched from the bar. Afterwards he quietly said, "Now you're truly fire." And I smiled. Not like before. Like someone who has returned and this time isn't leaving. Reddit post. A year has passed. A year since they left me alone on that beach. A year since I broke. A year since I put myself back together in my own way at my own pace. And I don't know how to explain it, but now everything is different. Not because life became magical, but because I stopped begging for what I deserve. Lumbrá keeps growing. Now I have an employee. Her name is Anna. She's 19 and has a laugh that fills the cafe. The customers keep coming. Some bring friends or daughters. Sometimes they just come in, sit down, don't order anything, and I let them because I understand. I recently received a wedding invitation. Yes, Yvonne's. I didn't expect it. I didn't understand if it was sarcasm, manipulation, or pure ego. I threw it in the trash without opening it completely, but I kept thinking for a while. I remembered that night of crooked pizza, his hug, his voice saying, "If you ever leave, I'll follow you anywhere." And look, I left and he didn't follow because it was never love, it was control. His mother also wrote to me. She had never interfered before. I know what happened was horrible, but you're part of our history. It would be nice to have you at the ceremony. Part of their history. Maybe, but I'm no longer a supporting character in my own story. I replied with 2 lines. Thank you, but I no longer celebrate fictions. One Sunday I was closing the cafe. It was raining outside. I was sweeping slowly with the music low, and I saw Samuel standing at the door with 2 coffees. Let's go to the pier. It's raining. Exactly, he said. We sat under the wooden roof, looked at the sea, didn't talk much. At one point he looked at me and said, "Would you go back?" I thought, took a sip and answered, "Not for all the gold in the world, not to change it, not because all of that brought me here." He looked at me, blushed, and then I knew. I wasn't just complete, I was whole. Today I write this from the cafe kitchen. It's late, it's raining again. Anna has already left, and while I finish this post, I just want to say one more thing for whoever needs to read it. For you who may be on your own broken beach, alone, scared, thinking you won't be able to. You will be able to. Not all at once, not perfectly, but step by step you will return to yourself. And when you do, you will look in the mirror like I did recently, and you will think, thank you for not giving up. We'll read each other. Claudia M. Responding to Reddit, wow. I didn't think so many people would read this, or that they would cry with me, or that they would hug me like this with words. Thank you, really. I've been reading all the comments one by one, and I don't want to just give little hearts, I want to say a few things. Don't you feel like getting real revenge? Of course I do. For months I imagined 1,000 ways. Keying his car, videos, letters, yelling at him in public, telling his new partner everything. But then I understood something, revenge is staying stuck in the past and I no longer want to live there. What they did to me was horrible, but if I keep revolving around it, I'll never get out. I prefer to invest that energy in myself, in my friends, in my people. My success is not to crush anyone. It's to remind myself every day that I survived. Were you really in love with him? Or was it dependence? Good question. Today I think it was both. Yes, I loved him very much, but I was also broken inside and he knew how to grab me right there. He confused me so much that I thought control was love, that jealousy was interest, that yelling was a strong character. And that's why it was so hard for me to leave, because leaving someone who hurts us is not difficult because of what we feel for them, but because of how little we feel for ourselves at that moment. Aren't you afraid to trust again? Yes, I'm terrified. Sometimes Samuel touches my shoulder, and it takes me a while to relax. Not because he's bad, quite the opposite, but because trauma is an inner voice that says, what if this explodes too? But I'm learning. And Samuel doesn't rush me, he doesn't pressure me, he just walks beside me, and that's something new for me. Do you miss your family, your friends from before? Yes, some nights. I miss having someone to tell things to without having to give context. But I learned that blood doesn't guarantee you anything, and that true friends are not those who go out for drinks with you, but those who stay when the world spits you out. Today I have another tribe, cup by cup, coffee by coffee. They're not many, but they're mine. Do you feel happy? Not every day, not like on Instagram, but I do feel at peace, and that peace is worth more than any happy ending. Thank you for reading, thank you for making me feel seen, for not minimizing my story, for giving me what I never thought I would find on the internet. Real companionship. To you who are reading this with a broken heart, with fear, thinking you won't be able to, you will be able to. Not all at once, not perfectly, but step by step, you will return to yourself. And when you do, you will look in the mirror like I did recently, and you will think, thank you for not giving up. We'll read each other.